Well, hello and welcome to the first episode of our new show. It's the Added Time podcast here, and I'm delighted to say and introduce my co-partner in this and my co-presenter, Tony Grant, former Premier League midfielder. Tony, welcome to the podcast. Are you looking forward to it?
I really am, Alan. Nice introduction to me, Al, and I'm looking forward to our conversations.
Now, look, you've played for Everton, you played for Manchester City, you played for Burnley in the Premier League, you played at a number of other clubs as well, but you've also coached around the world. Tell us a little bit about that.
I was lucky enough, Al. I retired at 32 and went straight into youth coaching at Blackburn Rovers is where I started. That journey, we'll fast forward a few years, and I ended up in Australia with a good friend of mine, Robbie Fowler, as manager of Brisbane Roar. Going over to a new country, I didn't really know what to expect. In the UK, going through the academy system and the EPP had just really came out while I was there as an under-18 coach. We had a real high level of professionalism and a lot of departments who all support each other. So going to Australia, I weren't really sure how it's going to be, but it was an amazing experience. So I'm quite privileged to go over there. Their level of professionalism was probably just as good as the UK, probably with less money, but lots of great minds there and doing things the right way.
Yeah, Australia was interesting for me because I always remember my dad when the normal football season finished, he would do the Australian pools when I was a kid, and so you sort of got to know a few of the teams, if you like. And then you ended up in India. I mean, that must have been an interesting prospect.
Well, if you go back then in that timeline, Al, we were over in Australia and doing ever so well. We had to rebuild a club. They finished stone cold bottom the year before, letting in 90 odd goals in a relatively short season. So we put our stamp on that team and that club, and everything was going great. And then COVID came, and to be honest with you, we nearly got stuck in Australia. So I always remember we had the last game in the A-League, a midweek game. And then after the game, we all got brought in for a meeting, and it was, that's it. It's time to go home, right? So the next day, we arrived at training to find more news out. And basically, we got stuck. We had one day to get out. And luckily enough, Robbie organised the flights. And even that was that's a story all by itself, Al, Coming home from Australia, all the airports are closed. How do you get home? Well, we had to fly to LA. And LA was like a ghost town. There was no one there. Everyone's got masks on. Everyone's petrified. LA to London in a taxi all the way home. It took us about 3 days getting home. But home we came, and we're in lockdown now. So no one's going nowhere. And if you remember, in the Premier League football, there was no fans eventually let in. Mm-hmm. Training was a little bit, people just turning off for training, getting the kit on in the car, then going home. So life changed. I mean, a lot of us have forgot about it at the moment because it's gone. But you roll that back, and that was a daunting time. And us, as being on the ground, coaching, managing, Robbie gets a phone call from a guy in India because all the other football are closed. Mm. There's an opportunity of a new club joining the ISL. They're going to play in a bubble in Goa. And we just had about 3 months of sitting in the house. So it was like, well, should we try it? Because we don't know what to expect. And it's another culture to go and sample. And who knows, we might really love it. Let's give it a go. So that's why we went, yeah.
It's an interesting place, isn't it? And I've spent with my time at Blackburn Rovers, as you know, with Venky's at the owners. I've been to India quite a few times, and the enthusiasm for football is quite incredible, really, when you think because you think of it immediately as a cricket country. And I found the interest in football was as good as, and in certain places even better than cricket, in football. And of course, you were on the east side with East Bengal, which were a massive club. I mean, they used to get like sort of 100,000 people, didn't they, in stadiums? And
yeah, but obviously it was COVID at the time, you see.
Yes.
So East Bengal, I think, arguably the biggest club in the whole of India, historically. And they would, if they played 80k in Bengal, then I'm saying they're getting 80, 90, 100,000 fans watching. Yeah. And, the love of the sport is there. The people are fantastic. The players want to get better. Whereas I was speaking to before about the professionalism in the UK and the EPPP came in and, we're always thinking of how we can improve over here, whether that's on the pitch or off the pitch, physically, mentally. There's always, and a lot of money gets spent over here in the Western world, I suppose. Well, they're behind all that. But yet the thirst to become a footballer and improve is there. They just need more structure and governance. And
I guess that's utopia for a coach, isn't it? When you've got players who want to learn, want to be coached and want to get better.
I had a young boy. We took a young boy. And this answered that question perfectly. Young boy called Tomba, 17, technically as good as many English boys, technically understood the game, couldn't speak a word of English. And it's interesting, even in India, a lot of the Indian boys didn't understand his dialect.
Right.
Okay, so there was like a little core who understood his dialect. This boy came from the slums. So just to give you the idea of some of these young footballers, what they're going through, a 17-year-old boy who a treat is eggs, an egg's a treat, So the miles behind the development of these players over here, and yet we give that player his debut in the ISL. I think he was the youngest player to play in the ISL, and he almost scored. And as the game wore on, you can see physically it's too much for him.
Yeah.
But technically, he's a fantastic young player, and that kid's gone on now, and he's carved out a decent career for him in India, and there'll be many kids like him. It just needs more people like us over there to really see it and develop it, you know what I mean?
And then, of course, you went from there to Saudi Arabia, which sort of was the big thing at the time, and it still is now. But it was the start, really, of that Saudi sort of boom in football.
Yeah, and it has. It's made a huge splash, hasn't it? The pro league over there has players in every club who are almost European, well-known players. China done it a few years ago, and it just didn't really take off, did it? Saudi have, Neymar was playing there, Ronaldo was playing there. These are. I noticed Ronaldo scored 2 for his national team last night. The man just keeps going and going and going and going. I don't know when he's ever going to end. Saudi have got the World Cup in, I think it's 10 years, 9 or 10 years time, and they're trying to make a big difference over there. Again, their players are technically got some technicians. The way of seeing the game isn't the same as over here. The demands that are being put on them growing up isn't the same. The academy system's not the same. It's so far away. It's closer to India as a developing youngsters than it is to the UK. But at the top level, they've got some of the best players, and they are putting that much money into developing academies that I'm sure it will change in the next 10 years. Yeah.
Well, listen, we've established, I think, that you've got a bit of a pedigree in the game. You've been around, you've seen a lot of things. So the idea of the podcast, the Added Time podcast, is about football, to talk about the game itself. We'll be looking at many different aspects of the game. The Premier League, obviously, the EFL and other leagues as well, and we're looking at coaching, and we'll have a little look back at times gone by as well. Of course, Tony was a player in the 90s, and we talked about that. I was actually at the football club at Everton as a press officer. Tony was busy being a great footballer. I was just being busy, I think, is what the term used to be in those days, wasn't it? Every time, you'd come into the training ground and people would just start buzzing because you're seen as busy, as they put it. But so we'll be talking about all that, but we're going to start, Tony. Let's get on with the show itself, and we're going to start talking about the transfer window. We've just come out of a transfer window where the money has been spent like no time before. It's a record amount of spend. And we're going to look at the sort of winners and losers, if you like. Yeah. Let's start with the winners. Who do you think has won the transfer window, if you like? And bear in mind, it usually we need to see a season first before we know, how.
I think lots of clubs over every year buy and sell players, don't they? And lots of the players you've never heard of because they come in and but looking at the winners, I mean Liverpool, they've gone out and have made a huge statement this year. I think they've spent somewhere around 480 million, and I know 480 million, and I know they've brought money in, but the outlay is humongous. The wage bill is skyrocketed. The timing of them going for them big players, it was interesting to me. It was as though they've scoured Europe and thought, well, we think these as a club, not so much the manager, I think it's the club. We think these may be generational players, such as Wirtz, Ekatike, and obviously Isaac now. Now, if they see them as the best players for the next 10 years or 5, 6, 7, 8 years, like they happened when they bought your Manes and your Salah, even though they were much cheaper, it's a huge statement. As a Liverpool fan, I suppose it gives you great excitement. But what it also brings is a huge amount of pressure now. I think last year when the new manager came in, he inherited a squad. He didn't really touch it, and he comfortably won the league. Now, he's lost two important players, should I say, in Diaz and Trent, two very important players. But they've gone out. How it's going to pan out, where they're all going to play, will be their problem, and we'll see. But they have made a huge splash.
And it's funny you should say that because you look at Liverpool and they win the league, and you're almost saying that they're in a bit of a transition period, and almost the manager now is starting to put his stamp on the club. Is that where they are? It sounds a bit crazy to talk about the champions, that they're in a transition.
Yeah, it from last year they won the league, but it's almost like a rebuild, isn't it? They've got two new fullbacks. From a team who comfortably won the league last year. I don't know how many points they won it by, but it was a comfortable win in the end. And now Isaac is a huge player. Now they've got a number 10 who sits behind them. The dynamics are going to be different. They've started the season off great, haven't they? I think the games have been quite tight. They were lucky to win on the weekends, but they've been quite tight. But they have made, as far as buying players, I'd probably say the biggest statement that I've seen for a long time.
We talk about Isak. He seems to be the one, and it's gone on all summer. The debate about whether or not a player should go on strike, if you want to call it strike, a player shouldn't, he's made the move happen, hasn't he? And we've seen the contrast between Guy at Crystal Palace and Isak. As a former player, how do you react to players who maybe don't want to play for the team and stuff like that, in the dressing room? How does it manifest itself within the dressing room? Does he lose all those players' support?
I don't think he does, no. I think the players, once he comes into training, the players sort of just forget about it and we get on to training. If he's refusing to come in, the players aren't going to see him, are they? Because he's obviously in his house. But once he comes in, everything's forgotten about. On the training park, all them types of issues really don't affect the players. And I know a lot of press make examples that it's unsettling the changing rooms when, there's board problems and there's this problems and that problems. But as a player, you get to train and you can't wait to get out and play and train and kick a ball. That's your release. Most players are going there they've got their own daily lives, they've got their families, and it's just their release anyway.
But it has to be unsettling, though, doesn't it, for the club? Because
For the club.
Yeah, for the club, it's unsettling, isn't it?
For the club and for the fans, not so much for the players. You know, me personally, how you deal with it is always going to be a dilemma. I don't think there's a magic wand when you're a smaller club. I know Newcastle are a big club, but they're still a smaller club compared to a Liverpool or a Real Madrid, say. You have a player who's your best player, but he doesn't want to play for you. For me personally, get him out your club. If he doesn't want to play, because in the end, all that's going to happen is more trouble in the press. If his agents are already saying it's already done, it's already done. Get as much money as you can for him, and go and recruit your players to replace him. And for me, if any of the clubs have these players who want to go and are refusing to train, which is what we're getting led to believe. I don't know if that's true, but we're getting led to believe. Let him go. Let's get it done quick and get him out your building. You don't want him anyway. He doesn't want to play for you. So, bit of distaste for me of how it all. There was no real leadership, and I think for me then that's got to come from the club. So I'm saying to the club, show me the leadership. It's your club. Every club loses great players. You'll know many clubs. We all know many clubs. Your best players go, you think it's the end of the world. No, it's not. It's the start of a new era. So you as a club, show great leadership. Get them out your building and get someone who wants to wear your colours.
Okay, so let's go straight to Newcastle then. So Liverpool have done well in the transfer. I think that's fair to say. They've brought in some fantastic players. Obviously, it remains to be seen how they do throughout the season. But as far as Newcastle are concerned, how is their window, do you think?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? I think Newcastle have had a great window because, as I've just said then, they've got rid of a player who doesn't want to play for them. So you're playing twice a week. The Premier League's a tough place. You're going to have a player who doesn't want to be there because he thinks he's better than what he is and he wants to go to a bigger club. So for me, Newcastle have had a great window. They've brought in Alanga, who I think's an exciting player.
Yeah,
he's as fast as anyone I've seen. So in a transition game, great asset. They've brought in a young kid who I think's very, very good from Aston Villa, a young kid called Ramsey.
Yeah,
I think he's a brilliant player. And then they've brought in goals from Wissa, So they've got rid of Isaac and they've brought in Wissa, who's been doing it for a few years longer than Isaac. And they've brought this pace in, this youth in. And then obviously they've gone and brought a German boy in, who, again, we don't know what he's going to turn out in the Premier League. But he does look an exciting player. And as far as a transfer window goes, I think Newcastle have had a great window.
Yeah, Walter Maida is sort of, I think he scored last night against Northern Ireland, I think. So, listen, Newcastle I'm sure will settle down now once all this is over. The transfer window is closed. But where else do you see, the clubs that have done well in the transfer window?
Well, I think Arsenal have had a good window. They haven't lost anyone of real note from a good season last year. They were going with Liverpool for the title up until maybe a month or two, and then just fell away a little bit. But bringing Eze in, what a good player Eze is, and then they've gone for Gyökeres, haven't they? Gyökeres has played in the English league, but not in the Premier League. I remember him playing for Coventry and coming from nowhere. And then all of a sudden, it took him a while to get used to the Championship. But then he became unbelievable striker. And then seeing him go over to Sporting Lisbon and score some amazing goals and have great stats.
I think it was 39 goals he scored.
Yeah,
that's a lot of goals. And the argument will be, thrown, I'm sure, that's the Portuguese league, might not compare. What do you expect from him this season? I mean, it's interesting. You look at him, he's a big lad. He's a big, tall centre forward, what we call the big guy up front.
Yeah.
Does he do what Haaland maybe did coming into Manchester City? I mean, Arsenal played a different style of game, didn't they, before?
Yeah.
You look at the likes of Haaland, and you know, is it an argument to say that they lost a little bit with Haaland in the fact that they got all his goals, but they lost that sort of those goals from a different place?
Yeah, I think looking at Gyökeres, he reminds me, and it reminds me of the time when young Jeffers went to Arsenal, and it came out that they want a fox in the box. Now you look at Arsenal. They've got threats. They've got Mandzukic, they've got from Chelsea, who's got another guy who's got bags of pace.
Yeah.
You're expecting them to create, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're expecting Odegaard to create.
Yeah. Saka.
Eze to create.
Yeah.
Saka to create.
Yeah.
Martinelli to create. You don't really need a striker coming off to feet all the time. They've got enough players. Yeah. Declan Rice, you know, he goes and joins in as well. Yeah. So, for me, my bit of advice, I would say, for Arsenal or to Michael Arteta is keep playing Gyökeres. Yeah. Even if he's not scoring, just keep playing him, keep playing him, keep playing him. Because I think the boy will score.
Yeah.
I think he will. Now, he is a little bit different, but I think he can run. He's not static. No. He's not like the old target man, even though he's got a little bit of size to him. But he can move, you know. I know he can finish. He just needs game time and gets used to all these players he's playing with.
And we saw with Haaland, you know, the amount of goals he got, you know, certainly in his first season, you know, incredible because of the players around him and who were serving. So let's see. Okay, Arsenal. Anyone else? I mean,
my last one who I thought Everton. I think Everton have had, in my opinion, an amazing transfer window. I really do. I think I look at who we lost from last year, first and foremost. Like, you lost Decore, who was a good servant for Everton. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, another good servant for Everton. And probably Ashley Young, who actually done really well, you know. But they're all getting on, to be fair to them. Dominic's had injury problems. Yeah. So them three have left the building. And then you've replaced them with a lot of youth. You know, Alcaraz is a young boy. Young Dibbling.
Yeah, 19.
19. Yeah. You've got Kieran come from Chelsea, 26.
Yeah.
You've got Jack Grealish is probably the elder of what he bought. And you've got Barry, who's come in. You know,
what's he, 21, I think, is he?
22, Barry.
22.
And we've got a young boy who we got from Bayern Munich at 19, who's a developing player.
Yeah.
And obviously, the one I want to speak mostly about is Jack Grealish. You know, I honestly think Jack Grealish could be the signing of the season. You know, he's been there, he's done it. When he walks on the pitch, it's like the opposition know there's a real talent against us here today. And every time he picks the ball up, he's got 2 or 3 players around him. But his intelligence, this is the big one for me this year. The intelligence he has, he finds the right pass or he gets the right foul. I think he's an unbelievable signing. I think Kieran was a clever signing. I think he was a boy who, when he was at Leicester, showed plenty of promise. And it's like you go to another club, and normally a bigger club, these players can sort of stagnate. And I think he just stagnated a little bit. Yeah. You know,
he wouldn't be the first at Chelsea.
He wouldn't be the first at all. He's like United and Liverpool. He wouldn't be the first who does at the big clubs. It doesn't mean he's lost his ability at anything. You know, he's sometimes he's against world-class players at them clubs. But I think for Everton, it's like he's found his home, I think. You know, sometimes you can find your home.
Yeah.
I remember Joe Royle saying to me years ago, it's about find your home. And I think Kieran's found his home. He's a ball carrier. He's happy with the ball.
Yeah.
So I think Jack, you've got Kieran, you've got Alcaraz in your squad, you've got young Barry, who we don't know yet. What, again, like all these other clubs who've bought some foreign players who we don't really know about them. But he's young enough. He's shown some promise in some games. So it's an exciting time, really, I think, for Everton. And I think they've had a good win.
I think if you talk to Everton fans, though, one of the issues still remains that the club never really sort of brought in defenders, you know, certainly right back, possibly even a left back cover. I know they've got Asnu coming in. We don't know how that's going to go. Do you think there was a little bit of a missed opportunity not to bring in a right back? I know they were trying.
Yeah, I think it's the big boy who plays for us,
Jake O'Brien.
Yeah. He's so big. it's unusual that he can play right back. You wouldn't normally see someone of his size.
Yeah. And he played left back for early on in the Champions League.
Yeah, so when you watch him right back, I don't look at him as a centre back. He looks like he's played right back all his life, which is testament to him, really. I think maybe Everton have scoured for a right back and think, well, do you know what? We've got 3 good centre. Forget Jake for a minute. Michael Keane's a good centre half. I know at times he's had a little bit of stick from fans at certain times, but he's playing great at the moment. Tarkowski is an old-fashioned English solid centre half, and then we've probably got a top 2 player in the wings who, when he's fit, he's left-footed. He's going to play. So there's 3 centre backs already there. So we don't need 4 centre backs. So I think Big Jake's found his position as right back, which solves a lot because, one, you've got size, so your right back's massive, but he can play football and he can move well. And it's like anything, and we could have went and bought. You talk about injuries, you might need more depth. In an ideal world, we'd love to have 2 left backs, 2 right backs. But I've seen seasons in the past where we had it a few years ago at Everton, where we had 3 forwards, but they were all injured. The 3 of them were all injured. So, as far as a window goes, it would have been, I suppose, even better if you bring in another right back. But don't forget, we've still got Patterson here. We've still got Seamus. So we've still got cover. And he can still... I mean, I watched Seamus against Mansfield last week and he was outstanding. Yeah. He's full of enthusiasm, isn't he?
Yeah.
And
he's got the same energy now as he had when he first came.
Yeah, so I think as a window goes, changing the type of player we used to have, we've now got a window of intelligence with Dibbling, with Jack, with Kieran. So, and we've got youth. So I think the window has been a great window for us.
Oh, I must apologise. In fact, no, I'm not going to apologise. But every now and again, you'll hear Tony refer to Everton as we. I might do it as well. I think our allegiance is no secret. We are Everton fans. But at the same time, so if that's what you're wondering when we say we or us, we'll just take that one on the chins.
Yeah,
I
take
think.
that on the chin.
So Tony, we talked about the teams, and listen, I just want to say about Jack Grealish. I think what's been fantastic is the way the fans have taken to Jack Grealish already, the Everton fans, and as they say in Tinder world, they definitely swiped right there, and they're really sort of up for him, aren't they? And they enjoy that, and I think it's a mutual connection as well, isn't it?
I've said for years, Everton have to have a talisman.
You have to have a hero. Don't you
have to have a hero. It's getting these young kids going a game and talking about not just the team, like who do you want to go and see, and they were crying out for someone who is that player. And I tried to get him to Everton when he was playing for Aston Villa when I was supporting Marcel Brands at Everton.
Yeah,
and it fell on deaf ears then, and we could have got him really cheap then as well before Man City come in. But he's an outstanding footballer, and I think he's got plenty of years left in him. I can't wait for him to start curling a few in. But yeah, no, he's a talisman that has been crying out, and the clubs like it, Everton, they need these players. And
you talk about timing there, about the Villa, when he was at Villa, but in a sense, it's all about timing, isn't it? And if he didn't have that sort of low at Manchester City, which he's had over the last season or so, he may not be coming to Everton in that same frame of mind. So who knows? Yeah. We've looked at the winners of the transfer window. Yeah. Who are you looking at? Give me a couple of clubs who you think possibly failed in the transfer window, and maybe
I think a lot of clubs sort of either never got rid of so many players, or when the players they did get rid of, they've replaced them mostly with players we've not really know that much of them at the moment. But there's a couple of clubs who stand out, who I think it seems to be, I think they're going to have a tough season. Brentford being one. Yeah. And I like Brentford. I think Brentford have done fantastic. They've done great. They've played a good brand of football. They've come from nowhere. I remember I was coaching Blackburn's first team, and Brentford were in the Championship, just come up from League One, and they were playing their brand of football then. And now they've got this lovely stadium, and it's a really good club. And I'm hoping they can stay in the Premier League, but I do think they've got a mountain to climb. You know, they're having one season where the manager's gone, and I like that manager.
Yeah,
I think he's a fantastic guy, Thomas Frank, and the manager leaves you, so that's a bit of turmoil. But then your two best players who score all the goals, you know,
Wemmer, yeah,
one's gone to Man U and one's gone to Newcastle. You know, that's hard for any club. You know, you take Salah out of Liverpool and someone else out of Liverpool from last year, they probably don't win the league.
No.
Now we're asking West Brom to, and they've got a new manager, and I sends all me luck to him as well, because I like him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm hoping they do well for him as well.
Yeah.
But let's have it right. They've lost all the goals, and they've lost the centre mid, who's been a good Premier League player for them. He's gone to Arsenal. Norgard's gone to Arsenal. So I know they've got their own little way of recruitment, but it takes some skill and some timing to find a new Wissa and a new Mbeumo.
Yeah.
You know, and fair play to them if they do it. But as a young manager coming into that league, and for that club to sustain the Premier, it's been a big turmoil start of the season, I think.
And the other team was, you mentioned two.
And I feel sorry a little bit for them as well. Aston Villa. I feel as though it's just like there's like a cloud over them. You know, there was a lot of talk about your PSR in the summer. They've lost a young homegrown player in Ramsey. You know, he's an exciting young player. And they might not have lost many players, but they lost two really important players. Key players. And I know they were only on loan, which was Asensio, I think he's gone to PSG. And Rashford, who's gone to Barcelona. That's how good they were.
Yeah.
They've gone to two of the best teams in the world, yeah. So to replace them, you know, it's tough. It is really tough. I just fear for Villa this year. I know they've got a couple of young lads on loan, one from Liverpool, one from Man U now. I know that. But still, your Asensio and your Rashford, I think, will have a different level than what they're getting. That's what I believe. And I just fear for Villa this year. And I don't think and it's probably not their fault why it's been.
Well, there's obviously PSR issues there, isn't there, and all the rest of it. And of course, where does that leave Unai Emery? Because, you know, you sense, is there a sense there that maybe he might be getting frustrated in that situation? Because a manager wants to challenge those top... He will have gotten to Europe and all the rest of it. He would have really wanted to kick on this season, and he hasn't been able to for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, when we talk about managers. Before we were talking about a player in Isaac forcing a way out. I think a manager who's got more experience in life understands the fans and the club much more. And I'm hoping the leadership of the club understand the situation Emery's in. And they come to and they back him. Yeah. Now, they mightn't back him right now with players, but you can still back the manager.
Yeah.
What you can't do is if they have a bad month, is look to sack him.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be backing. That wouldn't show any leadership. And I hope at the same time, Emery rolls his sleeves up because he knows this is a tough moment.
Yeah.
You know, and this is where clubs and leadership, I think, is really important.
Okay, well, listen, that's the Premier League done. And we're going to move on in a moment to the EFL and look at some clubs there. So yes, so that was the Premier League. And now we're going to look at the EFL. We're going to dip into, you know, each week when we do this podcast, we're going to dip into different leagues, the different stories. And Tony, I want to just start in the Championship because, you know, the Championship, we know the Championship well. You as a coach, I've worked at Blackburn as a director, and I know how tough a league it is. I always remember on the first game when I joined from Everton. I left Everton as the director of comms to Blackburn, and I was sat in the stands, and I was sort of, the ball went down the left hand side, and I remember shouting, "Go on, move!" You know, I won't say name the player, but I wanted him to be quicker, and someone just got hold of my arm and said, "This is the Championship, Al. It's not the Premier League," you know, and so you have to. But I mean, what a tough league and what a great league, and we've seen already this season that it started with a bang, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, over the last 10, 15 years, it's become a mini Premier League, hasn't it? You know, teams who were getting relegated are coming down with vast amounts of money. All the pictures are all in much greater nick than they were 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, the way football's played now, it's a different type of game as it was years ago. It is more technical now. So it's a tough league, yeah. And just don't forget, Al, there's 46 games.
Yeah.
You know, that's what everyone forgets,
Yeah.
It's a lot of games.
A lot of games, isn't it? So let's look at it. I mean, Middlesbrough, every year you see Middlesbrough threatening, and you look at the ownership of Steve Gibson, and he's done a great job with that club. You have to say that. But you look at the ownership. You look at the fact that they come every year, and they're sort of the nearly men over the last few years. They've tried the likes of Michael Carrick and other managers, and they're at the top now. And Rob Edwards has come in. He had a terrible season last season with Luton, and before that, obviously, the euphoria of the Premier League. Do you think, are we seeing that Rob Edwards actually is a good manager now, and maybe managing a downward spiral with Luton is a very difficult thing when you come down from the Premier League?
Yeah, I mean, Middlesbrough are a great club, aren't they? And they've got a great owner who I think a lot of us away from football, we look at owners, and I think Gibson over the years has backed everyone as being a manager.
Yeah,
he really has now. Obviously, he's been there for a long time, Gibson. I don't know how many years he's been there, but he seems to have been there forever in all my time.
I remember him in the 90s, yeah.
All my time, but he's one of them guys. I've never met the guy, but I want him to do really well. I want his team to do really well, and Boroughs are a funny club because they're almost a big club, aren't they? Up in the northeast, I suppose they are a big club, but they just haven't done it for a number of years. And obviously they got rid of Michael, didn't they, last year? Done okay, but obviously they want to do better, and they've gone with Rob Edwards. And Rob Edwards had a great couple of seasons, one where he got a promotion with Forest Green back in the day, and one where he got Luton Town promoted. But then he's also tasted the negative side. But that could build him. That could have been a lesson well served, because now he's had many dark days, and he understands how sweet and sour football can be, and because he's young, sometimes young managers don't have that much experience of them moments and how to deal with it. So it might be to Middlesbrough benefit that he's actually had some sour moments. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So I expect them to do well. Yeah, I expect Middlesbrough to finish top 6 this year. I really do.
And can you believe the other side of it? You look at Sheffield United. They were in the playoffs last year. They were up at the top for all, what felt like all season. Chris Wilder, no one more passionate to manage Sheffield United, I don't think, than him. And then they changed the manager because obviously they didn't get up to the Premier League. Ruben Sellers has come in, and I don't think they've won a game yet. They're at rock bottom of the league, and how does that happen?
Well, I suppose as a club, you've had the last manager was a Sheffield United fan, wasn't he? He was Yorkshire through and through, wasn't he? And he led by example, and his team followed him, and he had great successes with them. And maybe the club obviously thought, well, we need a full change. And to be fair, they've gone for a full change, and they've gone for a foreign manager. But maybe the players haven't. It's understanding the players you got in the changing rooms. Is it the right time to do that full change? Are the players ready for this? Have they thought long enough about following the last manager? The complexities of this club, because the players they've got in their changing rooms, they should not be bottom of the league. Not a chance. No. Now, time will tell whether it was the right or wrong, because in football, it's only time will tell you if it's good or a good decision or a bad decision. But right now, I mean, they're having a torrid start.
Is Sellers in trouble? Do you think? Do you think his job could?
I think so. I mean, his background getting the job didn't instill you with a huge amount of confidence, So just him getting the job, and does that type of manager fit up in Sheffield? I'm not sure. The neighbours are going through a torrid time, aren't they? I don't know, but in the end, they've made that decision, the club. And they're going to have to roll the sleeves up, and the players, they're going to have to get together, because they should not be bottom of the league. They're still getting full houses at Bramall Lane, and they've got lots of quality on the pitch. But right now, it's not looking too good.
Okay, so let's finish on the Championship with a club that we know quite well, and that's Blackburn Rovers.
Yeah.
And again, a club which you could argue is in a sort of transition on the pitch, because you got Ismail, who's come in as a manager, came in after John Eustace decided that he wants to go to Derby County for whatever reason. And Blackburn, which is a bit of a worry from me, they've seen a couple of managers decide that the club wasn't for them and moved on. I mean, they were in relegation trouble, Derby, when and Blackburn were in the playoff places. So that's a big decision.
Yeah.
They've taken out a lot of experience and a lot of players, in the club, if you like, never mind the side, in the club, who've been there a number of years and know the club inside out.
Yeah.
Is that a concern, do you think, for you?
Yeah, it is, really. Blackburn's success, really, in the last number of years, even though they haven't got in the top 6, but the academy's been huge for Blackburn. And I just noticed this year they've lost young Dolan, Costello, they've lost Travis, Hyam, all British type of players that the club sort of needs and has been built on for years, really.
You would call them championship players as well, wouldn't you?
Good championship players,
yeah.
Now, they've gone a different direction. They've brought in a lot of players. I think they brought over 10 players in this window. Majority of them are foreign players. So they've got complexities now of playing at Ewood Park under a lot of pressure, and they've lost a little bit of identity with the players who've gone. Again, time's going to tell, but it's a funny club that no one's got right, have they? They just haven't got it right. I mean, it's such a great club.
It is a great club,
fantastic
and you look at the money that the owners have put in over the years. I mean, I know when I was there, they were talking £2.5-3 million a month.
Yeah.
I know a championship club, I won't name them, but the championship club whose owner, had a ceiling of £3 million a year. A season. Before he would put any more in. So you have to ask the question, why hasn't it worked? Why doesn't it? And they find themselves the lower end of the table again.
I think for me, Al, even as a youth coach there and a first team coach there, the quality of players we were having at the time, and they were fantastic. Young Tom Kearney, people like Tom Kearney, even a younger Stead. Don't get me wrong, we got the best out of them.
Yeah,
we did get the best out of them because their previous team didn't want them.
Yeah,
that's why we got them. But the infrastructure that the owners have allowed to happen and to keep moving forward takes a lot of money, and they've put it in. The only downside for me is they've left leadership people in who shouldn't be leaders at such a historic big club, one season away from getting to the Premier League. And I have a lot of hope for Blackburn to turn it round at some stage. You just mentioned the owners have put hundreds of millions of pounds of their own money in, but they haven't got someone steering the ship. And that's, if they don't change, that's always going to be the problem. Now they've allowed the club to sell a number of English-born players. You just mentioned managers going. What manager leaves to go into a relegation fight? Well, a couple have, haven't they? Or a couple have walked out. So there's a lot of problems, and time will tell whether their new stance is the correct stance. But it doesn't sit well with me. So many of the English types of players leaving Blackburn Rovers.
I mean, you look at the owners and you look at their time in charge of the club, and 10 managers, I think it is, 10 or 11 managers, around 15 different directors. That they all can't be wrong. There must be a sort of an issue there which isn't being addressed, that you would think. But at the same time, it is a new look. They brought in Rudy Gestede as sort of director of football, if it, maybe in another name. They've got the new manager in now. They're bringing his type of players in, and it will take time, won't it, I guess, to integrate all those people, including the director of football, including the new structure, if you like. So hopefully that changes round.
Yeah, and it's the old adage in football. It takes time, isn't it? The only problem you have is if you can't see what it's going to look like after a while, and results aren't very kind to you. You don't see the rest of it out anyway, because there's no history of any of the managers succeeding probably 18 months or whatever.
Well, let's just look at a couple of issues in. By the way, I just want to say, in League One and League Two, we saw at the weekend, which I've never seen. You might tell me it's different, but we saw at the weekend two bizarre moments. I say bizarre, maybe that's not the right word, but Michael Mellon, who's the son of Mickey Mellon, scoring for Oldham Athletic and winning the game, and then Charlie Wellens, who was the son of Richie Wellens for Leyton Orient, scoring the winner in the 95th minute, by the way, for Leyton Orient. Have you ever known? No. We always remember Nigel Clough with Brian Clough, but imagine two sons, scoring winners.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
I don't think it's ever happened before, has it?
No, I know Ian Moore, his dad, Ronnie. Course, yeah. So Ian would have played under his dad somewhere. Yeah. And I'm sure he scored, but off the top of my head right now I can't think. But I seen young Wellens's, and it was a fantastic goal actually. Yeah, it was 2-2, and they were away to Port Vale, Leyton Orient, and Richie plays good football. I like Richie, and I like Leyton Orient. I think they're going to have a good season. Of course, he was at
Oldham, wasn't he, Richie?
That's right, and he's an ex-Man U player. Yes, Richie, so he come through that system, but kid breaks down the wing, plays it in, and the centre forward shows up for the ball. And then a good decision. It was really good play, and they nicked the win, didn't he? Last kick of the game.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Mickey Mellon. I mean, I can imagine that they have a few issues when they're washing the kit, and they've got M Mellon on, on both sets of kits. So whether we'll have a Mickey or a Michael, I don't know. But certainly, I'm sure Oldham Athletic will be happy with their two Mellons.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Now, let's look at League One and League Two. I mean, are you surprised to see the teams up the top there?
Cardiff come down. We've got young Brian. I know Brian from back in his day when he was at Rochdale. Brian, lovely lad. And then he tasted first team management for a short period at Rochdale. Then he went into youth football at Man City, and I think they're 21s coach. Started learning his trade probably, and changing his philosophies and ideas. And he's got his opportunity at Cardiff. And Cardiff obviously just came down. We've got an array of good players. Probably the favourites to go back up.
We never brought much in, though, in the transfer window. There's not a lot of money washing around at Cardiff at the moment. So fair play to them.
And maybe that was one of the reasons why they've gone with a developing type of coach. To try and get the best out of the players they've got. Brian, one of Brian's qualities will probably be developing players and getting the best out of them. But it's the old adage, while they're winning, it's great. So they're at the top of the tree at the moment, and they've got to stay there.
And League Two?
League Two, I look at a couple of clubs who we always look for. Crewe. Crewe are one of my ex-clubs. Lee Bell there, who's actually a player. I played with Lee. He's a good footballer, Lee. And he's done ever so well as a manager. I think this might be his second or third season as management. And they're started the season quite well.
Yeah, they have.
They're tucked into the playoffs at the moment. And then my other club who I went on loan to, my very first loan club was Swindon Town. Yeah. Under Ian Holloway. Yeah. They've started great. I think they finished mid-table last year. So I always look out for certain results. Yeah. I always look out for the Oldham results. Yeah. Because I've got friends who play for Oldham. Yeah. And they've just come up this year, so they're just testing the league out.
We must mention Bromley as well. They're right.
Bromley's done ever so well, haven't they?
They've only been in the league a couple of years, haven't they?
Yeah.
So I mean, fantastic for them.
Brilliant.
And I think from what I see, there's great competition now, isn't there, in League One and Two? We look at Peterborough, who's perennial, they're up there most seasons. They're down near the bottom, and struggling again.
I think teams from the conference. This is interesting in football, really, but teams from the conference, I think, they're not a million miles away from most of the clubs in League Two.
Well, a lot of them were League Two teams, weren't they, for a long time?
But then League Two clubs going into League One, I think they find, don't be wrong, Doncaster and Bradford are actually fantastic. Doing unbelievable right now. But normally they find it quite tough So Bromley only been in the league for 2 years, and they're holding their own. They got a good draw with Gillingham on the weekend. I think it was a last kick of the game equaliser for Gillingham as well. But they're doing ever so well.
Okay, well, that's the EFL. We must mention in the WSL a tremendous victory on the first weekend of the season for Everton, and winning in the derby 4-1. I think it was at Anfield. Fantastic result, and I think that's now 6 wins in 6 derbies for Everton women. So
I wonder if the new stand, the new. I know they never played in it, but I wonder if those buying a new stadiums give the whole club a little bit of luck out.
Yeah, well, I mean, they start the campaign at Goodison, which of course will be a special day for them against Tottenham at the weekend. But we saw the likes of Man United winning 4-0 against Leicester. Arsenal winners against London City, Chelsea beating Manchester City. So they're the same teams.
Big boys, big teams.
Yeah. They're the same teams, aren't they? Coming to dominate that league as well. So I think nobody will deny us a little bit of indulgence if we say we hope Everton can have a good season as well. But yeah, okay. So now, Tony, what we're going to do every week as well is we're going to look back in time, and this is probably going to be my favourite spot of the podcast. And we're going to look back at the 90s. The 90s was a decade where you were very much involved in Premier League football. I was involved in football clubs, or certainly one club at least. And I want to go back, and this week I think we looked at, didn't we, when we spoke before coming on air? We talked about what was great about the 90s, and I think one of the things was strikers and the amount of strikers that we had, and it was an abundance of great strikers, wasn't it? And they weren't just normal strikers, they were all top of their game. People like Ian Wright, people like Robbie Fowler, people like in our club, Duncan Ferguson, Les Ferdinand. You name it, they're all there. Shearer, I mean, incredible. What was it about the 90s, do you think, that made the strikers so great there?
I think they just come on from the last era, didn't they? You're talking about, we mentioned Robbie then. He would have been brought up in the era watching people like Andy Gray or Ian Rush. There was always, we always had forwards. We always built forwards. Most teams played with 2 strikers back in the day. Some were a big one. I mean,
it was the old 4-4-2, wasn't it?
4-4. Some were a big and some were a small one. I was brought up watching Graham Sharp, Andy Gray, Adrian Heath, Gary Lineker. These are all me growing up. So you're always watching forwards, and as you're developing later on, you're always looking forward to play forwards in, because it was just sort of the way football was. As soon as you were a midfielder, you're getting turned and you're looking forward, because you had 2 forwards and they're giving you a run. And there was an old saying,
weren't passing sideways.
You weren't never passing sideways, because your coaches are all saying, look, he's giving you a good run, or look for the forwards run. So it's just become normal. So that's why there were so many forwards. And it's only when you start writing it down and you look at the forwards now. I mean, you mentioned Shearer, Fowler, Ferdinand, Ian Wright, Big Duncan,
Dwight York,
Andy Cole. I mean, Teddy Sheringham. We could go on, couldn't we? We could go on and on and on. And
let's look at a couple of them. Let's look at. I'm going to start with your friend, and someone who you've known since playing schoolboy football together, Robbie Fowler. And I remember having a conversation every now and again. Tony and he'll come down to my house and we'll go for a walk in the countryside, and we'll have a chat about football. And one of the things we talked about was Robbie Fowler as a striker. And I remember you saying to me, what always came across to you, what was always quite prominent in his game, was his strength and how powerful he was. I always remember, back in my early Sky days, doing a feature, and I interviewed his nan. And his nan talked about at the time that he was always smashing the ball against their windows, and the power. She said that it used to rattle the house. But you've talked about this, haven't you? About his strength.
Yeah, it's even further than that. They have this taste of scoring, this desire. it's almost like I think they all had it. I think they all had this like real thing inside them that when they get a chance, it's going in the back of the net, and they're putting the laces through it, and it's going in. And they had this. I'm not sure they really have that now. It's almost like it's got to be a perfect goal. You know, strikers now look so different than they did years ago, and maybe it's because there was one. They're playing with one up top now, and they're all coming to feet in general. But you know, you're going back to Robbie there. You think about it as well. I was speaking to him a few weeks ago, and I said to him, "Isn't it unbelievable? He's an 18-year-old boy from Liverpool, joins. There's 2 big clubs in the city. He joined one of them. And on his home debut, he scores 5. They won 5-0. He scored the 5. I mean, I've never heard anyone doing that.
No.
You know, that's like that's how good he was. But all these strikers with the match winners, weren't they?
Yeah.
You know, your wingers got the ball down. You know, Chris Sutton, Alan Shearer for Blackburn. The wingers got the ball. They win the Premier League.
Yeah.
You know, so strikers in the 90s, I think there's an abundance of different types. Ian Wright, how good was Ian Wright?
It's interesting you mentioned Ian Wright. So let's look at Ian Wright. You know, there was a situation where Ian Wright was brilliant when he had balls played into his feet, wasn't he? You know, he would latch. I love players who latch onto things, you know, as strikers. And he used to latch on to, I mean, when you've got people like Bergkamp and Vieira and all these people, you know, you're going to struggle not to be able to latch onto chances, are you?
Yeah, and what they do, they just all the forwards, he's got to give a good run. And the best ones give the intelligent ones, which make it easier for people like myself, or an Henry, or not Henry, or a Bergkamp or a Vieira to get the ball, get the head up, and the run's there.
Yeah.
Some modern players or players who aren't at the same level complicate the run. They complicate it, which when you're on the ball, you've got split second before someone's tackling you.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to see it, and it's got to be gone. Well, the best strikers give you the best run.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
So you're looking for that as a midfielder. You're
as a
waiting
midfielder,
for it.
and it's just that little bit of space. You're just looking for that little bit of space so you can guide that ball into his feet that he can take, past them so he can run onto it. You know what I mean? Over the top. So then it all comes down to quality. But them forwards just giving you that run. And
Les Ferdinand was a very different striker in a sense, wasn't he? Because he was a big guy.
Yeah, I loved Les.
You know, I mean, he scored goals for fun.
Fantastic player, wasn't he?
Did he bring something different, you think, to the table?
He could feel you, Les. He could roll you from the halfway line. You know, if the ball went into if you got caught in the race with him, he's beat you.
Right.
Most defenders beat most of them.
Yeah.
But when you're even up tight against him, he was a big strong player.
Yeah.
And he could roll you. I mean, he ended up being an outstanding footballer, didn't he? Really.
Yeah.
Really did.
I know we're going to have to have a look at 1 to 5 at the end of this because you know, I mean, it might be difficult. Shearer, I mean, you know, what can you say about Shearer? You know,
he had everything, didn't he? You could play through Shearer. He could take a fight. He could take a foul. You know, you could have a fight with you. He was well built. He could score a free kick, an header, a tap in. Everything, money. He was a bit of everything. You know, he won Blackburn the league title. That's how good he was. He was, but you know what, Al? They were all fantastic footballers in their own right, weren't they?
Right. Okay.
But when you, as a fan, you go in a game, it's your forwards, isn't it? You know, we're looking like Man U struggled the last few years, haven't he? I can't see a forward for them. I don't know who plays up front. And they've just bought.
Sesko's in there now, isn't he?
Sesko's in there now. You know, is he the right one? They bought the big boy last year, and it's the other boy who's just gone out on loan. Hoyland,
Rasmus Hoyland. Yeah,
he's just gone out on loan, so he only got 12 months, 18 months at the job. But even so, it's hard finding these players.
It is. I mean, that was the debate which we looked at, and we say, you know, during the transfer window, people said about strikers, you know, we want to get, they're few and far between, you know, there's not many around, you know, you heard all these cliches coming out.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why do you think there's not many? Is it the way we play these days?
I think the academy system has a lot to do with it now. I really do. Back in the day, it was almost, you just played. Everything was almost 4-4-2. You were in constant duels. You always had to beat your man opposite you. You were always playing forward. very rarely was you playing backwards. Now it's all about recycling, you know, and not risking. I think that one of the reasons I think he's been unbelievable for the game in Pep at City, but I think that he's one of the reasons why Jack's with us. I really believe he's had some sort of shackles on him, because if you're setting a game up, you can just pass your way through a game. You can, because you can show clips and you can show players rather than you beating him. If you just pass that ball there, look, he's in now. And then when he gets the ball, if you just pass that ball, he's in. And they've played a passing game to get all that success. And it does take away a little bit of individuality. It does.
But I've also noticed that it's into League One and League Two and Championship teams now, and you see who may not have the players with the ability, you know, that type of play demands. You know, well, is that a worry? Do you think? Are we?
I don't know if it's a worry, because it's just the way football's going. You sense it.
But should it go that way?
We've got no strikers now. I mean, one week you might do wingers. You know, we used to have an abundance of wingers. Yeah. You know, like I just mentioned Giggsy off my head, and David Beckham over there.
Yeah.
Don't even see wingers no more. So what I do see, I see more ball playing centre backs.
Yeah.
And I see more ball playing goalkeepers.
Yeah.
Right. So your centre backs now have almost become playmakers. So if they've got time on the ball, they'll try and find the man in the pocket. Or if you're really high up the pitch, they'll put it over your head, and it's probably well weighted. They're probably playing the passes that the centre mids used to play. Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of, your centre mids now are almost just like pawns in the game, whereas these are almost like the kings.
Yeah.
Your centre backs. You know what I mean? I mean, I can't wait for the day for teams to really go and get two strikers and play two strikers up and go man to man against these centre halves, because most of them will not like defending.
No.
You don't like to feel it. Sesko shouldn't be coming to feet. But it'll be interesting to watch how they play, because he should be staying high up, because they need a threat behind, rather than everyone, Cunha, coming to feet and Bumo coming to feet. You know, they're going to have too many players. So it's going to be that interesting watching that. But when you write down the strikers who we have now, I mean, we're taking Harry Kane out of it because he's over in Germany right now, but we're looking at the English strikers now, and you look at the calibre of the strikers in the 90s, it's night and day. It is night and day on quality, on goals, on everything that a striker brings. Not just that, but go in the match to watch your striker. You know what I mean?
So, well, look, come on, we're nearly there now. Looking at the top 5 of those players that we've mentioned, you know, let me tell you the players that we're looking at: Ian Wright, Alan Shearer, Les Ferdinand, Andrew Cole, Dwight York, Teddy Sheringham, Robbie Fowler, and we've got Michael Owen in there, who we haven't spoke about. Who are your top 5 from 5 upwards?
I think Michael Owen I would put in the era after. I know he did play in the 90s, Michael Owen, but I'm going to stick him in the era after.
Okay.
As a big impact when he come on the scene, I'm going to say Fowler as number 1.
Well, okay, we'll go that way then. We were going to go up from 5.
Oh, sorry.
Keep us suspense, that's all. But yeah, listen, no problem.
Well, I've done it now.
You've gone for it now.
I've gone for it now. Sorry, Al.
That's okay.
And the reason I'm putting Rob there, it's one, to play for your home club, who are one of the biggest clubs in the world, and then to go and score the types of goals he scored, and the amount he scored in his first couple of years, I think it was 30s plus, and then for that group of fans to then nickname you God, even though I am a man of church, but to nickname you God, it's an accolade all by itself. So no one's going to, because everyone will put Shearer number 1.
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say to you now, why not Shearer number 1?
Of course, so Shearer's number 2, because Shearer was the epitome of everything in a striker. As I said before, he could hold it up, he could bring players into play. He had a bit of everything, and he scored more goals than everyone. So there is no reason, apart from Robbie coming in the way he done it, and coming in from the city of Liverpool and doing it at one of the Liverpool, or everybody's done it at Liverpool.
Yeah.
Doing it that way.
You could argue there's a lot more pressure on him.
A lot more pressure. Yeah. I know Alan started at Southampton, didn't he? And then he got his move. And then Robbie, I think he scored 30. I don't know what Alan scored in his first years, but Rob scored 30 plus. So, yeah, it might divide opinions, but that's where I'm going to go.
Okay, so that's number 2.
Okay. Now, one of my favourite players was Teddy Sheringham.
Okay.
Right. I just love the way Teddy played. I think he's an outstanding footballer. He could do a little bit of everything, but he was more of a dropping off guy.
Yeah.
And would find a clever pass.
Yeah.
But he still scored an ample number of goals.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've got Teddy as 3. I mean, I'm doing this off
okay.
ad lib here now.
Yeah.
And Ian Wright.
Yeah.
Right.
Number
Ian
4.
Wright. Yeah.
Okay.
Ian Wright, arguably another one of Britain's greatest ever strikers.
Yeah.
Always will be. Scored different types of goals. Chipping goalkeepers, run after one, make a tackle, find, outstanding footballer. Played with some great players. Won trophies. And then, last of all, I'll go with Les. I thought Les was fantastic.
Les Ferdinand.
I used to hate him when he used to turn up at Goodison because he always scored against Everton.
Well, I think he actually scored against Everton for every single team that he played for.
Les was a brilliant. I'm saying that Andy Cole was a brilliant player.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're talking about brilliant players and unbelievable players.
Yeah. I think what it shows is the abundance of great strikers we had in those days.
It'd be much easier me doing a 1 to 5 with the strikers now.
Yeah,
that'd be much easier. Because it's the lack of strikers now as number 9s. Because most teams haven't really got one. That would be much easier. In them days, we're leaving out unbelievable players.
Well, it's only going to get tougher as the weeks go on because we're doing midfielders next week, I think. So you might struggle even more then. And I'd be very disappointed if you're not in the list, to be fair. But anyway, we'll have a look at that. Well, listen, that's the Added Time podcast for this week. We hope you've enjoyed it. We're sort of learning as we go as to what you might like. So if you agree with Tony's list of strikers, get in touch with us. You can get hold of us by a number of different ways on X and on other channels, and you'll be watching this on YouTube and maybe wherever you get your platform, your podcast from, whichever platform you use. But hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll be back very shortly, and we'll see you again.